system because they want a different kind of population. A population that doesn't ask questions of government, that doesn't demonstrate, that doesn't stand up, and that when they come and they take away democratic rights or rights to join a trade union, that they will get away with it. And they will then make the student unions weaker and more quiescent. That's what their agenda is. And their agenda is an agenda that's shared by some of our managers in the university sector. And that's where I want to finish with. Because it is not true that the vice-chancellors of this country rose up in opposition to the tuition fee regime. They did not march on number 10, they did not demonstrate, they did not protest about the way that that working class students were being driven out of higher education or that students would be laden with debt. No, they welcomed it. And they welcomed it on the basis that they could see a strategy for expansion of a different kind of education system. That's an education system where instead of having a critical education, what you have is training for vocation, where you have courses that are designed, whether they be at undergraduate or MA level, speculatively. That my university, UCL, wants to double its student body in size because they see students as bags of cash. They see £9,000 for an undergraduate degree possibly rising for every year, and they know they can make money. But to do that, they have to do two things. They have to bank the money that they've got out of the students now, and they have to screw staff wages down. UCL wants to make £50 million profit every year for the next 10 years. And when they make that money, they can then go to the city and they can say, we want to buy a campus in the Olympic City. That's their strategy. This is not madness, it's not craziness. This is a rational corporate plan of a corporation. The universities are becoming corporations. And so what we're seeing is not a rebellion from the vice-chancellors, we're seeing suppression from vice-chancellors. We're seeing our management in universities across London, Queen Mary, at the University of East London, saying we're going to deduct a whole day's pay if you go on strike for 2 hours. That's not an accident. It's a deliberate strategy to weaken the resolve of the staff who work there and to make them feel unsupported and isolated, to feel tricked into going, that they were tricked into going on strike and so on. And we therefore have to unite. So on the strike day, what we're doing at London Region is we are proposing to march to UCEA, we're proposed to protest at UCEA, and then we're to march to a regional rally at Conway Hall where staff and students are welcome to speak, to debate about the way forward. And the reason for doing it in that way is to allow the university staff and students from Queen Mary and UEL to join us in central London, to come together. There is more urgency now for the whole of the union movement and the student movement to join together and fight together than at any time that I can remember since 2010. We were there when the students were telling the Tories about how to rip up their tuition fee plans. We were standing outside while people were charging inside Millbank. We salute you. We have to keep up the struggle and we have to build it. But the key thing here is unity and clarity. Our enemy is clear that they want to divide us. We have to stand united.
Thank you. Keily, Black Student Officer for NUS.
Okay, thanks.
Alright.
Yeah, so my name's... Thanks, very nice of you. So my name's Aaron, I'm the NUS Black Students Officer, and I'm also one of the organisers of the Student Assembly Against Austerity, which is the student wing of the People's Assembly that launched last year. Thank you very much to the organisers of the event. It's always great to be at SOAS. I think the last time I was here I was chairing one of your UGMs, which was an experience as always. And I just wanted to outline a few of the things actually about why we have this week of action, what does the student loan privatisation mean. So George Osborne, as we know, a few months ago, confirmed that the government is absolutely committed to selling off the student loans from 1998 to 2012 to private companies. Sources close to the government have said that they want to do this this year, so obviously the fight is really on this issue. The government has already managed to sell off all the student loans taken out before 1998, worth about £900 million to private debt collectors for what is a bargain based on price of 160 billion. And Francesca is absolutely right, this is nothing short really of a massive giveaway of public assets to the private sector. And a secret report by the government has proposed increasing the cap of interest on student repayments or scrapping the cap altogether. So to put it bluntly, this could mean that core student debt to soar even more than it is, leading to graduates paying back over a longer period of time. It essentially means a retrospective hike in tuition fees. So this is also an attack, I think, as well, and it has to be raised on those who are already struggling at the moment. Because of discrimination in the workplace, we still have a huge gender pay gap, and black and disabled people are far less likely to be employed at the moment, and when employed, receive a lot less money. So we all have to be at the forefront of the campaign and get active. Ludicrously, we've seen press release after press release from the government since the report was leaked, offering all these fake reassurances, as James has said, that the terms and conditions of student loans won't be changed following the privatisation. And I just think, who trusts the Tories in this room? I certainly don't, so I don't think we should give them, believe any of that, and it's not worth, all these assurances are not worth the paper that they're written on. As David Willett, who is the Tory Minister for Universities, made clear to a Select Committee in Parliament last June, he said it's very easy for the rate of student loans to be hiked up. In fact, he said, in the letter that every student gets, there are some words to the effect that the government reserves the right to change the terms of the loans. This includes the interest rates, how much is paid back every month, how many years until the debt is wiped out, and so on. So there are many possible ways in which private companies can squeeze even more money out of graduates, already burdened with massive mortgage-sized debts, if this disastrous policy of privatisation goes through. It would be yet another major step forward in the wholesale privatisation of education. And obviously look at the impact of past privatisations, energy companies, rail, transport. This privatisation is about making as much private profit as possible. And if they succeed in selling off these loans, don't think for 1 minute that they'll stop there with the loans in 2012. This just sets the precedent for selling off every other year's worth of loans in the future. In the US, one of the top reasons for declaring personal bankruptcy is the failure, inability to pay off your student debt. And they've actually now changed the law to make it so you can't actually pay off, you can't use that as a reason to declare bankruptcy. That is the direction that things are heading in. It's really scary. So that's just about what is going on. So what are we doing to fight back? So this is a policy that impacts students past, present and future, and Lewis is absolutely right. There is a potential to build a movement of millions of people because it affects so many people in society. So we involved at the Student Assembly Against Austerity are determined to build as much as we can a mass movement on campuses to stop the UK government in its tracks. We made a start last year with a day of action on November 25th, which tried to sound the alarm, and we think we're doing that, and our campaign has managed to get over 50 MPs on board signing our early day motion to want to keep up the pressure. But obviously now we're stepping up the campaign, and this is this meeting marks the National Week of Action that's taking place. Over 50 campuses are taking part in this, which is fantastic. We've even managed to get support from the National Union of Students. Well, hey, I knew Claire would say that. Exeter University is fantastic news, just went into occupation, so I think that deserves a round of applause. And obviously we want to see more occupations. Banner drops are happening. Well done to Queen Mary's, if there are any Queen Mary students here. I think did the first banner drop of the week, which is fantastic. Although I do think that Birmingham might try and claim it because they did one last week. Anyway, we'll give you it officially. We're planning more and more of these things as well. We want more protests, more sit-ins, more occupations, more petitioning, whatever people want to do. And this Friday, we're going to be round off the week of action with a debt-in outside the Department of Business Innovation Skills, which is the department responsible for all of this. And obviously I want to see you all there with us. I don't know if the exact details, but I think we're going to be meeting here, assembling at 12 o'clock on SOAS steps. We're going to be marching down to outside Beers, and we're going to be as noisy and visible as possible. And it would be fantastic as well if any graduates in the room want to come and speak about how we can get more and more people involved, and that's really important. Get on the hashtag on Twitter, Stop the Sell-Off. And looking beyond, obviously, I know Claire's going to talk more about it, but we have to keep fighting austerity and linking up with wider movements on this, like the People's Assembly. So on Budget Day on March 19th, have that in your diary. We're going to be taking action with trade unions and People's Assembly nationally as well. I just want to say finally on one thing about the right to resist, which is one of the other topics of this meeting. Last week, many of us in this room were outside in the pouring rain, in the freezing cold, being kettled in Birmingham, and that was because we were coming together, demonstrating nationally to defend education. I just come from London Met campus, which had a meeting which was actually, the management cancelled the meeting and said that it's banned from happening, and this was about the privatisation. So there's a massive crampdown on students. And look at what's happened to the unions, the restrictive laws that are going through, the gagging bill. Boris Johnson, our beloved mayor, has called for water cannons specifically to actually deal with anti-austerity protesters. And this really is about clamping down on people's right to resist, fighting the government and their devastating policies. And it's an attack on our right to resist that austerity and the attacks on our living standards. And the way to beat them, I agree with what the previous speaker said, the way to beat them is to not let them intimidate us at all, organise even more actions, build the broadest coalitions that we can to fight austerity, and really fight against these neoliberal attacks on our education. Thank you very much.
No, I think. Does that work? Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, well thank you to everybody else on the panel. It's great to have such a breadth of speakers, and it's great to be back here home at SOAS. It's also great to see the vibrancy still in the Students' Union here. You haven't let the corporates take over like in many other universities, so well done SOAS. I'm here to talk from the People's Assembly. I just want to go back 3 and a bit years to 2010 really. 2010 we saw 75,000 students take to the streets in November against the increase of tuition fees. And as you probably all remember, we smashed up the Tory party headquarters, we defended our education as much as we could, and we built a massive resistance against the cuts, not just about cuts to education, but right across the board. We saw demonstrations in the following year of up to 500,000 people. We lit the paper of resistance that year. We had so many people coming on board. I remember the night that we was on Newsnight, a 15-year-old saying, I'm really astute. He said, you're taking away our educational maintenance allowance, which is pocket money. You're taking away our ability to go to university. There are no jobs. And then you're going to blame us for having to turn to crime in order to feed ourselves. And I think that was just a perfect insight. 9 months later, we saw youth, disadvantaged working class youth across the country rioting over the disgraceful killing of Mark Duggan by the police, and what a disgraceful outcome that we've had from our legal system recently, finding the police not guilty. That young man saw that coming. It wasn't just here, it was Tunisia, it was Egypt, it was Algeria. Young students, youth, also took to the streets in protest of what their governments were doing. This isn't just about what's going on in Britain. This is an international system of unfair wealth distribution that we are all feeling the pinch of. Just in case you haven't heard about all of it, and just a shameful plug for the translation of our book that we all put together, Springtime, is now available in Korean, which I thought was just perfect for SOAS students. If you want to know what was going on across the world, please do let your Korean speakers about that. And one of the people that contributed in there from Tunisia wrote a piece called He who sows thorns will reap wounds, talking about exactly what they're going to do to us. We are going to fight back. And now we see Cameron and Osborne with their talk about permanent austerity. They did initially say that they had to implement the cuts in order to plug the deficit, but now they're talking about permanent austerity. £25 billion worth of cuts they've now announced. This just goes to show you that it's not about whether they haven't got the money. This goes to show exactly where they're coming from, their ideological position on what they want our country to be and how they want it to be funded. They want to put more money into the private sector, taking it out of the public sector and privatising absolutely everything, universities, hospitals, housing systems. And last year only, we saw our government want to take us to war in Syria. And I'd like to quote Tony Benn here when he says, if they can find money for war, they can find money to feed people, to help people. And I think that's exactly what we have to think about. Where is the money going? Where should it be going? Just want to pick up on what Aaron was talking about, the Budget Day demonstration, where our government, Osborne's going to present his package of cuts. We have now managed to get a route agreed from here down to Parliament Square and having a big festival, which is unusual for them to even allow us to have a festival in Parliament Square. So we need to make sure everybody's on board with that day. Sam Fairbairn from the People's Assembly has got more details about that. We've also got a national demonstration on the 22nd of June, so everyone should be on that too. And obviously we need to broaden it out beyond students. It's UCU, it's PCS, it's Unite, it's all of those different sectors need to come together, and we need to do everything that we can to link up those issues. So just to wrap up, some people say we need, of course we need some cuts, but we should say no cuts. We know why we don't need cuts. Not some cuts, not slower cuts, no cuts now, never. Fund education, not war. No Trident. Defend your education. Take to the streets. Hopefully, I'll see you all there.